This week, Dr. Anand Singh from Symmetry Systems is with us to discuss his new book, Data Security in the Age of AI. Then for this week's topic segment, we discuss the reasons why CISO buy and the things that they don't really care about. Finally, in the enterprise security news, shifting zero, cyber insurance, unlike cyber crime, doesn't pay. New AI security categories are popping up to serve agentic and MCP servers. How tech companies measure AI impact, very interesting one. First malicious MCP server in the wild, is your computer mouse listening to you? The Korean government did not follow the backup rule of 3. Think you've seen the absolute worst idea for a mobile app? Wait till you hear about Neon. And we have no less than 3 squirrel stories involving bullets, lasers, and greasy snacks. All that and more on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
It's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. Do your end users always, and I mean always, without exception, work on company-owned devices and IT-approved apps? I didn't think so. So my next question is, how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps and devices? 1Password has an answer to this question: Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM can't touch. Check it out at securityweekly.com/1password. Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly and happy National Moldy Cheese Day. This is episode 428, recorded on Thursday, October 9th, 2025. I hope you get to see Guillaume's response there. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me is the connoisseur of cloud security, our single origin co-host and resident coffee sommelier, Ayman Elsawa. How are you doing, Ayman?
Hey, Adrian, how are you?
Doing great. Not planning on having any moldy cheese though. Not that I'm completely opposed. It's just not my favorite. Like it works in some settings.
I don't know how good it goes with green tea or coffee, so I'm not sure. I like to just kind of leave it aside.
Skip it.
Yeah.
And also joining me is the acolyte of Apple, the Prince of Poutine, Guillaume Ross. How you doing, Guillaume?
Doing great. Well, I was doing great until I realized it was a moldy cheese day, but I do like blue cheese, but not on poutine though.
Yeah. No, that is not the correct pairing for it. Yeah, maybe a salad or something like that.
Well, poutine is a salad, but we could go on for hours on that. So,
oh boy. That's how we're going to start this. Oh my goodness, you just broke my brain. All right, we got a quick announcement here and have to get into an interview, so I'm going to try and forget that comment and move on. Don't miss InfoSec World 2025, October 27th through 29th at Disney's Coronado Springs Resort. Cybersecurity pros workshops, before and after, and endless networking. Save 25% with code ISW25-SW at securityweekly.com/ISW2025. That is always a fun event. All right, today we have an author with us with a new book to share. Dr. Anand Singh joins us to discuss his new book, Data Security in the Age of AI, A Guide to Protecting Data and Reducing Risk in an AI-Driven World. Anand is the CISO for Symmetry Systems and is fellow faculty at IONS, which I think is where we met. Anand, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Adrian. I'm doing great, and thank you for having me on the show. And by the way, I would say that all cheese has some mold in it by definition because it has to be cured by fungus. So, yeah.
Very good point. Yeah, and what's your take on poutine as a salad?
Not a big fan of salads. As you can tell, I am from India. So typically the primary food in India would be a soup made out of lentil and a bread made out of
mulligatawani?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah, something like that. So that's the primary food from India. So that's what I'm used to. That sounds enticing though. And if Guillaume makes one for me, I will happily partake of it and offer my critique.
I love it.
All right. Next time we're at a conference at the same time, I'll be sure to bring some curd cheese in my pockets.
Amazing.
Some Canadian salad. So jumping into it with the book, I apologize. I have not had a chance to read the book. I did read the foreword. It was I saw that the founder and president of IONS did the foreword there, so that was very cool. And so I think it's interesting because there was some urgency in getting this book out. So first off, what made you want to put this book together? And I guess the urgency is obvious, right? Like the market is changing so quickly. If you waited too long to get this book out, either somebody else is going to do it, or you tell me.
Yeah. So, Adrian, I have been working on the book for almost 2 years now, and prior to my recent tenure with Symmetry, I was with Alchemy Technology, which is one of the biggest fintech firms in the country right now. Not to be confused about with Akamai, which is a whole different firm.
Yes.
And I wanted to write the book because I wanted to give back to the profession that has given me so much. I started writing it, and I came to the conclusion that unless I found some space for myself, I won't be able to write it because Alchemy services thousands of financial institutions, 25 million end users, constant bombardment of issues, right? Before we came on, we were talking about the fact that we are glad it is a Thursday, right? The fact is that every day is including the weekends, is a day where like mind is completely consumed and busy. So that was my primary desire. I think two other factors that came into play, Adrian, was that there's a lot of chaotic adoption of AI in enterprises, and the fundamentals are often missed. The fact is that most companies are users.
Do we even
of
know
AI.
what the fundamentals are at this point, right?
Yeah, exactly. And most companies are not creating models. They're operating, they're using data to train models, right? But that data part is missed, and most are just focused on just the models and etc. Right? And I think that's not the right focus. So those were the drivers for me for writing the book. Maybe one last thing I would mention quickly here is that my mother has written a book, my daughter has written a book. The bar was too high for me to not write a book here.
So you're feeling some family pressure there.
I am definitely feeling a lot of family pressure there, but fortunately, I think I have eased it up a little bit now that this is out and published.
Yeah, and now that it is published, I've seen you can get it hardcover, paperback, or Kindle. Who did you write it for? Who should read this book? Are there portions for everybody and portions that are technical? Tell me a little bit about the structure of the book and who you wrote it for.
I love that question, Adrian. And my book is written for people who have done technology but are trying to make their first steps into an AI-driven world. So the book has 5 parts in it, and the way I would say, Adrian, is that those 5 parts in the book are 5 first steps for a average technologists to transition into the world of AI. The way I start is by talking about what has been the historical state of data, things like data discovery, classification, identity to data mapping. These things have been around for a long time, but they are all being appended by the world of AI because it is significantly transforming these disciplines, right? So what I do is in initial stages of the book, I talk about these fundamentals, and then I transition into how these fundamentals are changing as a result of AI. A good example of that would be like the classification, right? Classification has suffered from low accuracy for a very, very long time. In fact, 45 to 50% is considered pretty good. But AI can substantially improve the accuracy level of classification almost to the 90% plus minus range because of its ability to look at context around the data. So, for example, a 9-digit number in a HRIS system quite likely is a social security number versus a 9-digit number in some code fragment, right? So those are
Right.
the kind of things that, so this is what kind of my approach was. Let's remind people about what has been around for some time, build a bridge to the current state of the art that is starting to change as a result of AI. And there is something in it for everyone. I forgot to mention that, but I think this is
Okay.
definitely not written for deep tech AI practitioner. There is something in it for everyone.
So it seems to me, that like a lot of these fundamentals, I'm curious to see if you agree. We got away with not having a good handle on them. Data governance, data hygiene, that kind of stuff. Does it seem like AI is kind of forcing our hand to finally tackle some of these things that we got away with? Having a more messy approach to, or just avoiding and kicking the can.
Absolutely. I think AI removes that choice or removes the choice to kick the can, so to speak, right? The reason being that it's not just a cybersecurity element of it, it's also the element of data being a primary factor for the quality of the AI that you are deploying in your organization, right? So the thing that I think about is, do you understand where all of your data is at? And are you able to harvest it for proper training of models that you have deployed in your organization? The fact is that most companies, even now, if you go and survey the data, there is not a central understanding of where all of the data resides. And
Yeah.
I come across this all the time in many different companies. The second factor is that the size and volume and scale of data that is increasing so exponentially. The outcome of that is that there is a lot of wasted spend in maintaining and operating this data, particularly if you are paying through the nose for cloud storage, hot storage, or things of that nature. To understand what is relevant and to understand what is not relevant can make a ton of difference to the financials of the enterprises. I think the third factor that comes to my mind is that AI, by definition, creates a lot of asymmetrical pathways to data. In many ways, it is making the life of an intruder a lot easier. We
Yeah.
see this example attacks all the time where people are just doing simple prompt injection to extract data that has been used for training purposes, for example, right? That asymmetrical pathway has significantly increased is the speed at which intruders can get to data, right? So the sum total of the factor is that I think the key thing that I wanted to do as I wrote this was to empower people to do something about all of these problems that are making their appearance, and to figure out to drive that understanding and to give them pathways for how they can be smarter and more intelligent and more protected, while at the same time supporting the AI discipline in their enterprises in a structured way.
Yeah. Eamon or Guillaume, any thoughts before I charge along?
Yeah, I saw you mentioned incident response for AI. Can you give us some insight or some preview into that? Like, I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
I think a couple of things that come to my mind, Eamon. So the first is um, the IR pieces. While the entry of the intruders have been eased up, at the same time, I think it is empowering the defenders in a substantial capacity as well. Two or three critical use cases that I see in that respect are: number one, the how soon can you detect blast radius, right? Having been a CISO for almost like 20 years now for some of the largest enterprises in the world, one of the biggest problems in the event of an incident is how soon can you figure out what your blast radius is? Because then you are much more smart and empowered. I think AI can definitely help with a quicker determination of that blast radius. The second factor is just kind of ongoing analysis of what are the pathways into your organization, the breach pathways into the data that exist in your enterprise. So I think to me, that's kind of the second key IR piece, or IR like incident prevention piece that comes into play. My third and final piece is the forensics and the investigation. And this is where a massive amount of work is happening, but also this is where there are a lot of snake oil salesmen. If you think about all the agentic AI, SOC agents, and how you can correlate and do forensics and help with investigations, etc. If you peel beneath the layers, what you will find is that in many of those scenarios, there is not real AI agents, and many of those, they are still kind of old world technologies rebranded as agentic AI, right? And so to me, I think there's certainly a lot of potential and opportunity there because time is of essence. And if you can automate that discovery and analysis through AI, even agentic AI, that will make a ton of difference. But I think there's a lot more room to go before the hype becomes real.
Yeah, and the thing that I find probably most challenging here is that these AI agents, the more access you give them, the more permissions, the more data you give them, the more useful they are, right?
Yeah.
But then you're guaranteeing that that's going to be an attacker's first stop, right?
Yeah.
Like, because it
Yeah.
completely lifts the fog of war for the attacker. And like,
Yeah.
hey, here's a ready and willing accomplice for you to help you find all the things you want to steal, right?
Yeah.
So
Adrian,
how do we? I
yeah.
don't know what that's going to look like from a data permissions perspective, access control, identity perspective, but I'm really curious to see how that falls out and to hear your opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Adrian, if you remember, when the mad rush to migrate from on-prem to cloud happened,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people were given blanket cloud permissions because, quote unquote, that would
Mm-hmm.
make the migration easier, right? And the
Yeah,
thought process was, when
root.
it is
They
all
would
done,
use the root. Yeah.
yeah, we will go back and kind of clean it up. Did that cleanup ever happen in a significant way? Probably not. Maybe some got around to it, but many never got around to it. And there is a still massive overprivilege in many situations as a result of that mad rush to go to cloud with a lot of overprivilege, right? I'm seeing the same thing happening in the agentic AI world as well. There are a lot of deployment struggles if you do deployment of like a RCM agent or something like that, revenue cycle management agent, for example. And what happens is people say, okay, I don't know exactly what I need, so let me give this agent permission to everything or a lot of things. When it
Sure.
starts becoming functional, I'm going to go subtract the privilege that it doesn't need.
Right.
And that subtraction never happens, right? So, but I think there is an interesting way to tackle this problem. And this is not 100% risk reduction, but I think that there is a lot of risk reduction that comes with it. And this is not, honestly, not even AI driven. I think this is just kind of, it has been around for a long time. But the key thing is, can you map identities to the data that the identities are using? If you can map the identities to the data, including agentic identities, if you can do the map, then what you can do is you can understand what is the privilege that has been granted to the agent that is never used, right? Like 3 months, 6 months into whatever the case may be. If you understand that, I think you can write a Terraform or something to go do the subtraction of the over privilege that was granted to the agent.
So there's definitely
yeah.
I'm concerned with a lot of read access to everything, like Adrian was saying before, right? Like, oh, let's just give it access to everything. It'll read everything. It's going to be better. Well, first, I think that's not always true because there's a lot of companies that never delete anything. And now the AI is reading stuff from 2007 that is not even close to being true anymore. But I'm even more worried about write access to different things left and right. Like, what do you recommend as a way to, keep track of and make sense of like all these agents' permissions, not just on the data read side, but write and access to APIs and so on?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Guillaume. And the more I think about it, the more I come to conclusion that you have to maintain a data access graph of what privileges you have granted and what are actually being used. And the good news is that the data security solutions of today can actually build a lot of that mapping very dynamically. So you are always aware exactly how the privileges are being used, read or write, etc. To me, the other piece of it, I don't like access reviews, who has done access reviews intelligently in any organization. But I think we have to figure out what is the next gen access reviews, for the lack of a better word, such that you are going back and looking into this identity sprawl and confirming that the access that has been granted is indeed the correct access that should have been granted. And I think some of the identity solution providers now have, SailPoint has this built in, and some of the others have built in as well, where they can actually run an analytics on the actual usage that the identities are doing and make that delta determination of what they're not doing. But generally speaking, I think this is going to be a slow one battle, in the sense that anything identity is almost always a slog, and a lot of work, a lot of kind of uh, process needs to be built for being able to stay on top of that.
Do you think it's going to be like cloud and containers where when it started, lots of features were missing from a security point of view and it was kind of a train wreck, but we could see that, okay, now everything's going to be addressable via an API, right? So
Yeah.
asset management should get so much easier in the cloud than it is in data centers, for example. But it took like many years for that to become a reality. And I think for a lot of companies, it's still not quite the reality because they just did like a forklift, they're just using AWS as like a big VMware in the sky or whatever. So do you think in a few years, we're going to see a big split between companies that are using AI and using AI to secure AI versus the other ones that are just going to be like, okay, read, write all, and YOLO, we'll see what happens later.
Yeah, I think the current scenario is a gold rush scenario, meaning that there are like maybe top 5 AI companies, OpenAI, Perplexity, Claude. All of these guys are going after turf right now. When they are going after turf, they are 100% focused on how do I just release fast and furious and capture a user base. Security is like YOLO scenario is what is happening right now. Security is not even anywhere on their horizon right now, right? I suspect what will happen is a little bit more of a Palo Alto scenario here, Guillaume, in the sense that these guys will never think about security. What will happen is they will go and start looking at the landscape for what are the AI security companies out there. And they are going to go start to acquire some of these companies to bring that skill in house rather than organically starting to think about it as a part of product portfolio that they are creating for end users. That's kind of my gut sense and take, but would love kind of a counter on that. You guys do this for a living, so you may have like some of the additional perspectives or thoughts on this.
I think it's similar to if you remember like early AWS days, there were a lot of products that were like, oh, this is a proxy to the AWS console where we only
Yeah.
expose the things that are safe. And
Yeah.
now, Azure exists, so let's try and be like multi-cloud. But the problem with those was they could never support all the latest features really quickly, right? Because the cloud vendors kept shipping. And so, and what do we have now, right? We have a lot of companies using like, oh, we need this LLM firewall so we can do DLP on the stuff that's being sent to all of them. And oh, now the firewall doesn't support the new voice mode or the multimodal video mode or whatever. So it really reminds me of, I don't know, like 2009. And then what happened was like these cloud vendors started building security in pretty much all the new products they were offering, right? Like if you look at AWS now, there's so many security features, but also it can become so complex that we're kind of at the opposite problem, right? Like you can have a IAM policy that's 60 pages long and requires an LLM to summarize. So I think kind of a similar vision to you there.
Yeah.
My favorite is, you can use CloudWatch for that, but only in these regions, not in these regions yet.
Yeah. Well, the threat actors don't know which regions don't have logs, Adrian, so it's fine.
Yeah. And I think that brings up an interesting perspective, guys, right? Because if you think about it, some of these folks will claim that they have provided everything. But on the other side, if you look at security teams and enterprises, the swamped security teams and enterprises, they don't have an ability to stitch a fabric together like CloudWatch or Bedrock logs or things of that nature. they don't have an inherent ability to stitch together a fabric for cloud security using some of the quote unquote raw features that have been published by cloud providers or AI providers, etc. Right. So in a sense, what that means is there is a room for great AI security companies in the scenarios that we are looking for, which reduce the threshold of securing AI and make it easy for enterprises to go and make that happen.
So it seems even before this chat, but certainly as we're talking through this, one of the things that strikes me is that there's a lot of companies out there that still don't know how to properly use cloud, right? Just lifting and shifting into it.
Yeah.
And that was something that was interesting about cloud is now you can have ephemeral assets. You can have infrastructure that's immutable, that's distributed. Like there's all these cool things you can do with it, but you need somebody who understands, the capabilities there to be able to build for that. And is AI, much the same? Do you think where as important as understanding the new security best practices, it's also going to be important to understand how to use it and the best places to use it and not use it. Do we need people who are more, I don't know, more experienced or more trained on that? Is there a different way of thinking for design and architecture, things like that?
I think there is certainly a very different way of thinking about this. I think there is a ton of almost crucible-like pressure in enterprises to go become more efficient using AI. But unfortunately, it stays at that high level. So what happens is decision makers and business owners, they are trying to figure out how do I become more efficient? And they will do a lot of things that are not necessarily solving the problem that they are being tasked to solve, right? There's almost like a mad rush type of scenario that is happening here. My sense is, and this is what I recommend in the book, I think you need to govern the practice in a reasonable and intelligent way, knowing that there is no 100%. And the two key factors that I recommend is one, bring the AI experts and business experts of the company together into an AI steering committee. Now, no one wants any more steering committees than those that exist already. But I truly feel that there is a ton of value in bringing that steering committee together to be smart about how things are getting deployed inside the enterprise, and also to be a buffer from the crucible like pressure for the rank and file management inside the organization, right? To me, that's kind of a crucial need. The second thing that I suggest and recommend always is if you haven't trained your people to do the right AI, then you can't blame them for not doing the right AI. So the second key factor that I recommend is have an interesting AI acceptable use policy for your organization. And I mean interesting very intentionally. That's a very conscious choice of words, because it cannot be, no, you cannot do anything, because then everything will happen without your knowledge. You have to make it interesting so that people know that they have your average employee base knows that they have been heard, that that smart usage of AI is allowed, and here are the key things to watch out for as a part of the smart use. So I provide a couple of templates in the book about both an AI steering committee charter as well as an acceptable use policy for AI.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. I imagine you want legal in there as well in that steering committee.
100%. And one of the key things, and this is kind of a very crucial point, so I'm glad you touched on that, Adrian. AI is a very horizontal discipline by the very nature. What AI means is security, data, your AI architects, your legal, all of these guys need to have a framework that they are operating together in and collaboratively. It's not a vertical discipline. So one thing that I would caution for the listeners here is, as you think about who are the stakeholders inside of your organization, go broad. The simple things like you mentioned, legal. Many vendors still have language in their contracts which allows them to train and operate on your data for their benefit, right? And many entities are none the wiser, right? So things like that. So my recommendation is think of this as a very collaborative horizontal discipline. A single chief data and AI officer type of organization will not do well in driving this discipline across the company.
Gotcha. Do you think we can fit one more question, Guillaume, within this last minute?
So I know there's a section of your book about like offensive use cases for AI. Most of the time when I see people talking about the risk of AI being used for offense, I think there's like obviously like, oh, it makes writing phishing messages easier in many different languages and so on. Like, sure. But then whenever I see like panic around, oh, this can find exploits so easily and all that, like my first thought is, if it can find exploits so easily, why wouldn't the people making the software just do it first and it's going to even out? How do you see it?
Yeah, the way I see it, Guillaume, is that I think some of these are just the legacy issues that are being rebranded as AI issues. If the exploit is that easily found, then maybe it should not have been that easily there anyways, right? Maybe the practice is missing, and what you are doing is now you are kind of blaming the AI for something that should have never been there in the first place. So the way I think about this, Guillaume, is let's keep the risks brought by AI distinct than the traditional risks and the crud of legacy that was never resolved in the first place. And AI just makes it easy to discover that rather than it being the driver for those issues like that, right? So to me, I make that distinction.
Excellent. Well, Anand, thank you so much for joining us today. Great conversation. I enjoyed it a lot.
Guys, this was a great conversation. Thank you for having me. I loved it.
Thank
All
you.
right, stay
Talk to you
tuned.
next time.
Yeah, but I know I need to. Who is the cheese guy? Who is the patina guy? And who is the coffee/tea guy? So I have like three great sources of excellent food and coffee in the future.
There you go. There you go.
All right, stay
Thank you,
tuned.
guys.
When we come back, we're going to discuss how CISOs decide on purchases for this week's topic segment. Imagine a world where every threat, ransomware, supply chain attacks, zero-day exploits is stopped before it can even begin. ThreatLocker makes that world a reality with a zero-trust approach to cybersecurity. By giving you granular control and every executable in your environment, ThreatLocker protects your business around the clock. No more guessing, no more gaps. Just rock-solid protection that keeps your operations running smoothly and your data secure. Discover how ThreatLocker's least privilege approach can safeguard your organization against known and unknown threats. Take the first step towards total peace of mind by visiting securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker today. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. For this week's topic segment, we're discussing why CISOs buy, the reasons why they choose one product over another specifically. So Valts Zanev, founder of ExecWeb, which is part of the Cyber Risk Alliance family, posted some very spicy insights, not necessarily his opinions. These basically came out of some survey work that he did, I think. So ExecWeb, as I understand it, facilitates meetings between CISOs and vendors. And then when a purchase happens, he can follow the process, and he has some information about how that process goes down. Surveys the security buyers on like what was important to them, why they bought, that kind of thing. And it's interesting. He shared his results on LinkedIn. Here we've got the links in the show notes. Kind of bucks what traditionally you would see vendors thinking that the customer is what's important to the customer. And I like it because it's kind of an honest take. And then the other link here is from Howard Holton, who apparently founded GigaOM, which is an analyst firm, but has a background as a security leader, security practitioner. And it basically says this is spot on. So I'm glad I've got two folks with me, Eamon and Guillaume. Both have CISO experience because I'm really interested in your thoughts on this.
Well, I guess essentially the take is the thing that matters the most is this purchase going to get me fired?
Yeah.
Which I think means, is this product going to slow things down to a crawl or crash production or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Though to be at that point, you need to kind of have decided that you want a product in that category, right? Like you're not going to worry if the product is going to crash something before you've decided you want something in that category. And I think so. I think that doesn't come up right away. But if you just think back, like every time you've seen an active security technology in passive mode, I think that's kind of an admission of that,
instead
right?
of
Like,
inline, right?
Right, like, so the whatever machine learning blocking on the endpoint security thing is off, or if you go back, like the IPS is in IDS mode and the WAF is still in learning mode, and like whenever you see that, that's I think if I actually use the features that we're paying for, I would get fired because everything would crash, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely a big factor. Like I don't see it as, am I going to get fired? I see it more as, am I going to cause availability problems? And I think that that's an important part of my job. I also think, like, what's the point of improving security if nothing
things are
works,
down.
right? Like, and I think one of the things is a lot of security teams don't traditionally think of availability as being like part of their job, excluding maybe like DDoS and type of stuff. It's more of a like an SRE type responsibility, or even an IT responsibility traditionally. So yeah, so I think like I'll buy something, like price here is mentioned as not being important at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think price is important. There's your minimum and maximum. So when you're within a decent range, I think it matters less than we think. Unless I'm already unhappy with a product. Like I'm always trying to find something that's going to be better and cheaper almost every time I renew. And by better, I usually mean something that's going to be simpler, easier to use, and at least as effective, right? If I can get something that's more foolproof, that's more reliable, and from a security point of view is going to detect or block as many things as the product we had before, I can get better coverage when I roll it out. So that'd be good in a renewal. And I think if it's a new product type, it's time to value is one of the most important things, right?
Yeah.
And now with everything being like cloud and APIs and all that, there's more and more products where you can do a quick POC, and within like might be 15 minutes in some cases, right? Like you're already starting to see like what it could do, what types of problems it's finding for you. Like a CSPM would be a good example, cloud security posture.
SSPM as well.
Mm-hmm. SSPM as well, right? Like give it some read credentials to your different cloud platforms, and you can already see like, oh, do the findings in there make sense or not? And then obviously I put a lot of trust in references, especially references that are coming from teams that are known to have really good security teams, companies that are known to have really good security teams, that publish a lot of stuff online, and like, okay, that's a place that uses good tools, or people that I know. And so, for example, if you told me like, hey, you should use this awesome new, product ABC, I'd definitely be more interested into looking at it. And then, price being 10, 15% higher is much less of a consideration because it's already gained some trust. So I think it all goes down to how much do I trust that this is actually going to work and not make things worse? Because I think we've had a lot of security products that just made things worse, right? Like, was it worth it?
Yeah, I talk a lot about, value is not a thing that goes from 0 on up, right? It can go into the negative. You can have negative value from a product.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The implementation timeline is huge. Or implementation, like, is this going to work? A lot of times I've bought software and then only to find doesn't do what I like it to do, because salespeople will tell you anything just to get the sale. And then there's also like time to value, right? So that's part of the thing. So if you're building a product, you want to increase your time to value or decrease, right? So like, how fast can I get value out of this? and it's that's real. That's real. And also like friction. Like, so is this going to cause friction? How am I going to get this going? It's very, very rare to find. I mean, the best security tool is one that also improves convenience while improves security, right? Because we know that it's often inversely proportional. So yeah, and then there's tons of Slacks, right? There's tons of private Slacks that CISOs are in. So there's both of them are on point as far as people talking to each other and see which one actually works. When anytime a vendor comes to me, I mean, everybody, they just roll their eyes, like, this, our software can do this and solve all your problems. I'm like, first of all, if you're like starting with FUD and all this stuff, I'm like, you've just like, just white noise to me. Like, I'm not listening anymore.
Just turn it off.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
I'll ask my friends 15 minutes after we drop this call, and we'll see if it actually, somebody else will tell me that's actually
right. If it works or not. So I think like I agree with the content pretty much. It's just the hot take of people buy what's not going to get them fired.
Yeah.
It's a little weird, right? Because you could also think of this the other way in the sense that, this is actually going to prevent a breach, so I'm not going to get fired for having a bad breach. And that's not what's meant here. It's more the project is going to be a disaster, rolling it out, and then, like your I don't know, your factory is going to stop being able to produce stuff because the new like inline network thing just crashed everything. So with that, I identify with more, right? Like as someone who's worked in places where availability was critical. Definitely don't want things that are going to mess things up.
I think the very nature of security products does make it kind of safe to buy security theater, right? Like you plug it in, like maybe not even connect it to the network, as long as it's like producing reports and lights are blinking or something like that, it looks like you're doing something, right? Like there's all these busy work generators out there in the market. And because it's not in line, like it's never going to cause an availability problem.
Yeah. Well, that's a good old joke, right? We do have a firewall. The rules are like any, or we have a firewall. It's in a box in the data center, right? But I think things, now that we've had cloud for so long and there's so many APIs, and like look at email security, for example. 10 years ago, if you deployed a new email security product, it was likely going to be inline. Maybe it would have like some kind of quarantine people would access, which would be out of like their typical like Gmail or Outlook experience. And then if the thresholds were hit at such a high level, they wouldn't even see the email. And then if the product goes down, email is not making it anymore, like at all.
Yeah.
While nowadays, if you're shopping for email security product, it's more API based. And instead of like, if it goes down, maybe things are going to stop getting filtered, but at least the email is still going to be delivered. And as soon as it comes back up, the rules are going to get processed, and it's really fast. So I think there's a lot of areas where you don't need to be like super tightly coupled or in line if you can act very quickly, which I think that's where we have like the ability, like Eamon was saying, like there's very little friction, there's very little potential impact to availability. And then from a security point of view, then that lets me be more aggressive, right? Like if I know I can expand my coverage because I know there's very little risk of causing issues, instead of, having a 6-month project where I'm like, well, we're going to roll this out to 50 people next week, 50 computers, and then 100. And I can be like, let's try 100, then 1,000, then 50,000, and boom, I'm done in 2 weeks, right? Like if you've ever worked on like massive IT projects, like I don't know, like deploying an ERP in like a large company, how like these projects never go as you think they will, like not even close. And like 5 years later, like the project is done because the scope is now nothing.
Right.
That's what you don't want to have, right? Like you absolutely don't want to have it. And I think fortunately in security now, we have a lot of products now that we can deploy without having to do that, which I don't think was the case. Like if you've ever done like identity management around like 2006 to 2012 or so, it was terrible, right? Like let's sync between like LDAP this and Oracle that, and just like complete mess. Everyone gets locked out, I guess that's a scenario where I get fired in this, right? Like no one can log in. Though I guess HR can't log in, so I can't get fired.
One thing I want to say about one thing about career safety, I think the distinction here, we distinct like the different types of CISOs, right? There's like enterprise, super large enterprise, global CISO versus mid market CISO, and then versus like small CISO head of security. So I think the career safety thing, I don't necessarily agree with all of that, but there is some truth to it. The ones that are maybe doing it from a career safety could be like more enterprise or larger folks. But a CISO that is committed, passionate about their job is going to want to, protect the data and because they're the ones that are going to get fired in the event of a breach, right? So did you do everything you needed to do to prevent this? And on that note, like shelfware, I think we mentioned a little bit about that, but I see shelfware everywhere. Like the first thing I do when I go into a new place, I say, okay, we're not going to buy any new tools for 6 months, like 3 to 6 months. We're not buying anything new. Let's look at what we have right now, and are we using the features as much as to the best of our abilities?
So I wanted to ask about that because you did mention time to value earlier, and I worry that in a lot of cases, value is not defined as anything beyond the product is installed and working, right?
Yeah, like a good security leader is going to know how to take this value, like translate what the salesperson might be telling you and say, okay, how can I get real value out of this tool? Because honestly, before a tool comes to you, you should be aware of like most of your problems that you kind of want to like solve, right? But there are tools that solve new problems or things in a new nuanced way. You're like, oh, that's a good way to solve that, right? Like that's going to solve something like DevSecOps, right? Or CSCD or supply chain security, which is a big issue right now. How are we going to solve supply chain security? There's like a million ways to do it. I don't know if that answers your question, Adrian. Do you mean like, what was the thing you're trying to get done?
Just that, how do you know, like if you ripped out the product and just got rid of it, would anybody notice? Would there be any impact on your security program? Right. Where's the value?
Pretty often, if it's shelfware, the value is it's allowing me to check a box somewhere.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I'm just going to turn this off. What's going to change? Well, we told people we had it. Okay, but do we do anything useful with it? No.
Now you have some legal liability because your SOC 2 says it or whatever.
Yeah. But also sometimes like removing something can require actual effort as well, right? Like, we were just talking about like API tools that are not in line and so on. If you had one of those, you want to turn it off, you just send an email to support and you say turn it off and it gets disabled and no problem, right? Or rip its access. When we're talking like things that are deeply embedded in the network, for example, or that require agents on all of your systems
or endpoints
that now need to get removed. So I think in a lot of cases, it's just the status quo is easier to maintain than any change. That means new tool or getting rid of one that we're not satisfied with. And I think what like Ayman said between different types of companies, that's 100% correct. I think it definitely correlates with company size, but also culture, right? So you might have like a very large company where it's not a problem to deploy something pretty quickly and be able to change, how we do things and so on. And there's other companies where it takes so long to change anything, you definitely don't want to have to backtrack. So what I tell people usually is, if you feel like you're in a company where you can be more aggressive when you roll out these controls, and if something breaks, you're going to be able to, reconfigure things, provide exceptions, handle them, and fix them in a very short period of time, it's usually much easier to get through a project, right? Because you don't need to spend 6 months like looking at logs and documenting every single thing that might break. Because you just, you roll it out.
Like, approval by committee and like 10 people have to be involved in one decision.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas in other environments, if you do that, you're going to get fired, right? So like, for example, I worked in a lot of different banks. What banks don't like is payment systems going down on like December 21st, right? So we didn't finish the project by November. Now it's getting postponed because of Christmas. And then there's still people on vacation in January. So we're going to resume the rollout on January 22nd. And the first thing you know, it's taken 6 months to deploy something relatively simple. But in those environments, you don't have the luxury of saying, I'm going to roll it out, and as things break, the team will fix them and resolve them. Whereas if you're like in a tech startup, are you going to spend like 6 months looking at logs, or are you just going to deploy the EDR? And if a couple things break, you're just going to fix them. So I think that's it's really important to know in which of these companies you are. Like as you might be able to tell, I don't really enjoy being in the companies where everything takes 2 years, right? So. But I'm also not a person that gets motivated by the fear of getting fired, right? So like I'd still do it. You can fire me if you're not happy.
Yeah.
But you need to know like, okay, what's the amount of risk you can take? So maybe it's fine for like the corporate security environment. Maybe I can be a little bit more aggressive with the things that are going to target the laptops and the email and the office networks. But when it comes to production, you got to remember like what's the important business process there. And so if you're a vendor, there's a really big difference in selling something that's going to run on a production network versus like an office network or corporate workstation. So for like, when the next gen firewall craze happened, like Palo Alto, next gen firewall, Gartner, new acronym, everyone wants this. Then every firewall company started building their own next gen firewall. And we were getting those pitched nonstop, like super aggressively, to put in data centers, and it just didn't have the bandwidth. I think it was Alex Stamos had a talk. I think it was at Black Hat, and he explained back then how much electricity it would take to power enough Palo Altos to protect. I don't remember if it was Yahoo back then or Facebook, and it was like we'd need like 2 nuclear power plants to protect this. And so like, okay, so you got a product that's good for end user computing. Stop pitching it to people who have like 1 billion terabytes of data moving every second. Like know where you're good so you don't put your buyer at risk. Because I'm guaranteed people who have bad experiences, people know, like people talk, right? Like it doesn't matter that, your license agreement says people can't do benchmarks and all that. If someone, crash production because of your rollout, their friends are going to know. So.
Yeah, you're not going to install Falcon Complete on a supercomputer.
I don't even know what OS supercomputers run, but that's a great example.
Linux,
and
Ubuntu, Red Hat.
And because of compliance, you see people trying to do stuff like that, right? Like PCI DSS says we need antivirus on everything. Nah, that's not quite what it says, and then they end up installing antivirus on the supercomputer, right? So
yeah, I've had to tackle that as a QSA. So. Yeah, good stuff. That's all the time we have for our topic segment this week. But stick around. In a few moments, we'll be back with the weekly enterprise news, and we have some fun ones. I'm sorry you got to go, Guillaume. There's some crazy stuff in here.
I know. There's some great items there, but maybe next time.
Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. You can check out securityweekly.com/ESW428 if you want to go follow along as we go through the news, or for links to the articles that we're covering, or for any of my comments. I don't have a ton of comments here today, but we do have some fun items here. And actually, I want to start with you, Eamon, because we didn't get a chance to cover this a couple weeks back. Might have been a month back now. Your post, it's time to shift zero.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's time to shift zero. Like we're ripe for it. So shifting left, the post is kind of like a hot take on shift left. I feel like if we're still saying shift left now, it's kind of like a little old. We need to shift right from the beginning. There are so many AI tools that you could just bake code securely even before the first commit and pull request, right? That's kind of, just secure coding right from the beginning. Using AI, leveraging AI, plethora of tools, right? That can, as you're writing, shipping secure code. So that's the point of my article. But yeah, thank you for that's the idea. And it's starting. I'm seeing other people talking about it, but yeah. but not that. Not. I'm hoping to coin the term. So if nobody's heard the term yet, then yeah, just shift zero. What are your thoughts on it?
Right.
What were your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's the right time to start talking about this now that one of the other stories we're going to talk about is the Google Dora report saying basically 90% of developers are using AI in some way. And this is one of the issues that we've seen with AI is that it can write code, it can write secure code, but if you don't ask it to write secure code, you'll just get normal, not secure code, right? It'll give you just middle of the road, mundane stuff I learned from, just crappy code on the internet code that it'll spit out. So it's
Basically.
actually often an extra step, maybe even a different model that I think we're going to use in the future to take the second round of AI generated code and look for security vulnerabilities and fix them. And all that should happen before, the very first pull release, right? So that's that in my mind. If that becomes the new approach to using AI to write code, that is kind of a shift zero example. If I'm
Yeah.
understanding the way that you're using it.
Yeah, I guess what I was intending is, I guess assuming an engineer is actually writing code, could be AI assisted, but
Mhm.
instead of waiting for security checks to come out later, right? As they're writing it, like real time, have that code be flagged for security real time as they're
Yeah.
writing it. There's a lot of things also with the shift zero kind of philosophy is like in a PRD or TRD, like a spec doc, having a security section in there that
It's just part of the template, right?
as part of the design process. So
Mhm.
early on in the design process, like what are we addressing when we're in this new feature, this new product, or this new whatever it is? What security? What security? What are the security implications? What are the security features we're adding? And then, of course, having some sort of reference as like, okay, if we're building this is how we should do it securely from the beginning. Like, don't
Now I'm
roll your own auth, basically. Stuff
now
like
I'm
that.
wondering if um, my PRDs had a security section in them because I did build a template for it and I built them all in Notion, but I don't have access to that Notion anymore from when I was a director of product management.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they did. I mean, not, but maybe well, it was a security company you were working for, right? So maybe they did. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I did.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I did.
I have a draft of an article that's ready talking about exactly that, the purity and like, here's what you should do. And here's some questions you should put in the template. Like, am I introducing any new security issues? How am I solving any security? How is this being done securely? Any security considerations?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Since I already mentioned it, we can jump over to where do I have Dora in here? It's number 10. So, Google Dora is a report that they do every year, just kind of tracking uh, the trend of, in this one, I particularly pulled from Tech Target here. Beth Pariseau pings me a lot for my thoughts on stories. I actually have to get back to her on one, but she does a good job of gathering information about these, trying to understand what's interesting about them. But yeah, I already threw out I think the most interesting stat. It went from 76% in 2024 to 90% in 2025. And that change is developer adoption of AI. So it's a very kind of general ask, so it's not necessarily developers using something like Cursor, but they've adopted AI somewhere in their processes.
Mm.
Maybe it's just writing the PRs for them, right? And not the code. I don't know.
Yeah, everybody's doing it. I mean, it's just, especially, I mean, I'm a little biased because I see a lot of startups, so I don't know what's happening in enterprise.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody has adopted it. It's just kind of common. Even a founder I was working on recently, was shipping something with Cloud Code, and it was almost like embarrassed to tell the other team, like, oh, I got something with Cloud Code, somebody review it, and people are like, oh, and it's here, it's only getting more. Sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, it's a really interesting one. It's and it's really exciting and terrifying at the same time. Like I think we've talked about, we've seen our first malware that depends on agents like Cloud Code being on developer systems. So malware leveraging that to do the dirty work of the attacker. But then on the other hand, on the other side, like I've just every time I'm working with an engineering team, there's always like a couple hundred items that just get pushed from sprint to sprint to sprint and never get done. And
Yeah.
none of them are hard, but they all have overhead. They're all going to take 15, 20 minutes just to get started on them, just to understand the code. And if AI could knock out some of that stuff, like just software development in general would look a lot different, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, what if you could ship a new feature every day? Can you imagine that? Like, that's just amazing.
Yeah. Doing a lot more experimentation, a lot more trial and error, that kind of thing. Like maybe that new feature every day. Like there's a group that opts in to be beta testers for new stuff, and you get feedback really quick. Maybe the AI itself consumes that feedback and tweaks the feature based on the feedback. It could be really interesting.
Although I guess now, I mean, I don't know if you've heard about like 996 in SF lately.
I have.
Yeah. So I guess I just thought of this. I'm like, well, if we're doing like a lot of AI coding and it's helping us, like, does that mean we have to work less, or are we just working more?
Yeah, I think 996 is dumb either way, right? Like I think so one of the things I think is interesting, we talked about, and I forget the name of the company that did the research, but they took experienced open source developers and had them do their normal day-to-day tasks, and had them report how long those tasks take, and then they could use any AI tools they wanted, and then they again recorded that how long did it take them versus doing the same tasks without AI. And the tasks took 20% longer, if I recall the findings from that, when they used AI, but the developers thought they had done it more quickly. So the
Right.
perception was that they were more productive and faster using the AI tools. And so I formed a theory out of that, that maybe this is taking some of this cognitive load off, this context switching that you would have to do, to understand the code, to make changes to the code, to write tests for the code, all that kind of stuff. With some of that load taken off, maybe you can tackle 5 items where in a day, and complete 5 tasks, whereas without the AI taking off that cognitive load, your brain would just be fried at 3, and the quality of your work, the level of your productivity, the likelihood that you're just going to watch something on YouTube, or pick up your phone instead, goes up exponentially, right? And it happens to everyone, which is why I think 996 is crazy. Like most people are lucky to get like 2 really productive hours out of a day. So working more days and longer hours, I just don't see that. I think people are just really bad at measuring productivity if they think that's helping, because that's just not how the human brain works.
Yeah.
Maybe if everybody's 25, right? And like really fit and healthy or something like that. But if you're doing 996, I can't imagine that you're really fit and healthy and not sleep deprived.
Well, I think it's like a balance. You kind of go and you have dinner and you come back, and the problem is just
it's not really 996, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just an arms race right now. It's like it's an arm, and then maybe like that Saturday, So by the way, for anyone who doesn't know what 996 is, it's 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. So Monday through Saturday. So maybe on Saturday is when they like kind of catch up and ship things. I mean, I know I like to do some work on the weekend because I don't have, that constant noise of people pinging me on things. It's a good day to just do things. So not to justify it,
Yeah.
I am here, so I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but I can understand it because it's just an arms race over here on AI.
I'm blanking on the name of the principle right now. It comes from a book, much like Peter Principle, but it's not Peter Principle. But there is this principle that basically says that work will stretch to fill the time that you give it.
Oh,
So if you give yourselves Parkinson's law, thank you. If you give yourself 2 hours to complete a task, you'll finish it in 2 hours. If you give yourself 9 hours, you'll finish it in 9. So again, like I got kind of obsessed about this, like 10, 15 years ago. I used a tool called Rescue Time for a while. That's an agent that runs on your computer and your phone, all your devices. And basically it'll show you spent 2 minutes and 30 seconds on this web page. Like you can see down to that level of granularity. You spent 19 minutes today in this Excel spreadsheet. So it can actually show you, here's how productive you were, because then you categorize all the tools you're in, even down to the individual files. You can categorize as productive, neutral, not productive, right? So you can, and like one of the interesting things is like, how much time do I really spend on communication stuff, like in Slack, in email, that kind of stuff? Because I always tag that as kind of neutral. Like that's not me getting productive work done, but it's not productive because it's necessary.
Yeah.
But once you actually track at that really fine-grained, detailed level, I think you kind of look at productivity in a different way. And particularly if you're going to change your hours, if you're going to work a different schedule or a longer schedule, I personally would want to know, am I actually getting more work done? Or am I just taking the same amount of productivity and stretching it over a longer calendar schedule?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been learning also like on the productivity note, we'll close this, my last comment, but like just the different parts of the day, right? Like, you're more productive on certain parts of the day than other parts of the day. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Based on your circadian rhythms. Yeah. Exactly. I use another tool called Rise, RISE, that tracks your amount of sleep debt, but also, tells you like when you're going to be most productive, where your circadian rhythms move based on your sleep schedule, how much sleep you have, how much sleep debt you're carrying with you. So that's been a really useful tool because it'll tell you, hey, 7:30 p.m. Like your brain is going to be ready to go. So that's when you should, if you want to finish up any work today, that's when you should schedule it.
Nice.
And it's been pretty accurate.
Love it.
All right. Let's jump to some funding, M&A, just top of the stack here. Story number one. As always, most of this coming from the Security Funded newsletter from Mike Privet. And it's been a couple weeks, so we've missed a couple of these, but I found it interesting. And I always pull a selection out of here. There's actually, any given week, there's like 20 to 30 fundings going on. There's like 10 acquisitions, but a lot of them are because he covers everything. Like even if the funding is like $5,000, like it's on there, it's on the list. Wow. If it's like a grant or something like that. But so I pulled the most interesting ones out here. And what I found interesting is that we're starting to see funds raised for tech changes that just happened, right? Like Oba AI, US-based open source control plane to manage and secure MCP servers, raised a $35 million seed, which is an enormous seed round. I mean, they do get bigger. I think I saw an AI startup that received a $2 billion seed, but AI is nuts, right? But for a security company, $35 million seed is huge. Normal tends to be more 10 to 15.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, MCP, I mean, is it right at a year old now that Anthropic released it. I think it was last year around October.
I can't remember. It might be. It feels like longer.
It
Wow.
does, because everybody redid their roadmaps because of MCP.
Let's see what Wikipedia says. Yeah, November 24. Okay. And now you have MCP
Yeah, so
gateways.
basically this creates a choke point where you can set security policies is the way I'm I think I'm understanding it here. So it creates a kind of control plane that all your MCP servers go through, so you can inspect, put policies in place, that kind of thing. Is that how you're reading it?
Yeah. And I saw someone kind of building something like this. Yeah. Basically, MCP has all these permissions, but then this is kind of like a gateway to manage the permissions. I don't know if this is how this works, but like you said, a choke point. So gateway, firewall, whatever you want to call it.
I desperately need to spend some time with MCP. I've been planning to do it for a while and just haven't gotten there because I feel like I'm like not even qualified to read these articles
No, it's
until
just a
I play
fancy
with it more.
plugin. It's just a fancy. So
Yeah.
if you go open up Claude Desktop and take your Notion and connect Notion, that's an MCP in the background. That's it. And then you could see the permissions that Notion plugin you're giving. So if you want experience with that, and then you just say, "Hey Claude, go to my Notion and look at this database, or even create a database for this," and it'll do it. And then you'll see a red flag saying, "Hey, are you okay with this permit? To create this permission." So it's just a plugin. I don't want to downgrade it, but it's an API, plugin, API framework, whatever you want to call it, with a lot of permissions.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean that's part of where I feel like I'm missing it is, typically until I build it in a lab and like I play with every configuration option and I look at all those permissions and see what they are, like I can't really fully form the mental model of what the risks are, what the threats are, that kind of thing, until I actually play with it.
Sure. Yeah, but Cloud Desktop is a good. They have all that stuff baked in now.
Okay, maybe that's where I'll start then. Yeah.
Mhm.
Especially since it's Anthropic's creation. I imagine
Right.
their implementation of it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
So also there was another one, US based in country, has a DLP platform for agentic AI workflows. So I don't know if this is that different from an AI firewall, because most AI firewalls do like WAF type work on prompts on the front end, looking for malicious prompts, and then DLP type, making sure sensitive data doesn't get sent back out on the other side. So I don't know if this is significantly different from that. We don't have standardized language for this yet. Everybody just kind of calls them AI firewalls.
Yeah, I'm trying to like kind of come up to speed on this, but like I'm curious how it gets implemented.
Yeah. And then the one acquisition I'm going to mention is Netography, which Marty Resch, who's the guy behind Cisco's Cisco acquired basically the company behind Snort, the commercial company, got acquired by Cisco, and then he basically led Cisco to building out like a proper security offering there. Turned Cisco into a proper security company, left, and then started Netography, which is a network detection and response platform. We had him on the podcast a while back, but honestly, I don't ever hear about Netography. So we don't know what the deal amount. They were acquired by Vectra, which is also NDR. So not sure how to read this acquisition. If maybe they just didn't get market traction and this is like a technology buy for Vectra, or I don't know if they were complementary to what Vectra was offering. So don't have a lot of information on this one. Netography just never really came up in any of the circles where I just didn't see it discussed that much.
Hmm.
I don't
I
know
wonder
if
how
you've
big
seen it come up
Netography.
at all.
No, I have not. No, I have not. I'm curious how big they were.
But and to be fair, so they had 45 million in funding, so they didn't have a huge amount of funding. But to be totally fair, NDR in general doesn't come up a lot. Like I imagine this is something like I can't imagine small to mid-sized vendors are really using this. I would imagine this is more like Fortune 1000, larger enterprise. So it could be I'm just not around those kinds of conversations, those kinds of CISOs
Mm-hmm.
and security teams. So speaking of new stuff, I was not familiar with the term neoclouds. Have you heard of neoclouds?
Nope. Nope.
All right. So that's why I pulled this in.
Yeah.
So I gotta open this in the other browser because I'm not logged into LinkedIn here. But neoclouds are basically AI data centers that are taking some of the pressure off of the hyperscalers to give up a lot of their infrastructure to do AI inference, AI training, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So these are basically data center companies who've bought up tons and tons of GPUs and are being used as I guess kind of like co-processors by the hyperscalers being like AWS, Azure, GCP. I think there's a name. Yeah, they've got the names of a couple of these. CoreWeave is the largest one.
Mm.
Never heard of it before coming across this article. But yeah, good to know that this is kind of like a submarket, and it's going to be really interesting because to see what happens to these providers. Because if the AI bubble bursts, it's not going to be good for these guys. Are going to be left holding hundreds of thousands of GPUs. Without workload to profit off of them. But if it doesn't, these could become huge new companies, maybe hyperscalers in their own right. I don't know.
Yeah, if I understand correctly, I mean, I've heard, I'm like, I'll see the ads on 101 where use us for your inference
Yeah,
and that kind of stuff. So I'm guessing that's what these players are. I don't know if I've seen these companies ads. Oh, Lambda, I've seen Lambda. So yeah, I've
yeah,
definitely seen ads for these folks. And they're like basically trying to market, hey, use us for your inference power. So
yeah.
definitely been seeing that for a while.
There are four giants they're saying in this market, and to give
Hmm.
you a size, an idea of what giant means, CoreWeave, who is the largest, has raised $7 billion in funding. So that pretty large by any standard, I'd say. But Crusoe, Nebius, Lambda Labs, and CoreWeave are the four big ones.
Yeah.
It looks like.
If you go to
And it looks
Lambda's
like they're
website,
not building their own data centers. So CoreWeave signed a lease to build a $1.2 billion data center. But it sounds like most of them are just renting space at
yeah,
Equinix, Digital Realty, like
yeah.
other existing colo, data center providers.
I've been hearing this trend. So yeah, if you go to, and then I think so Lambda, if you go to the website, the super intelligence cloud, gigawatt scale AI factories for training and inference. So yeah, this has been happening. This has been happening for a while. I didn't know they had a name, neoclouds. And I think we've talked about this before. Data centers are expanding. They're expanding. So the data centers are expanding their footprint, and I guess some of this expansion is due to some of these providers renting space because they need the power and cooling. Just give us the power
Mhm.
and cooling, and we have the hardware.
They're talking about like this is supercomputer level power usage. Talking 600 to 800 kilowatts per rack.
Wow.
Like that's a lot for a single rack. Like typical is 5 to 15 kilowatts per rack.
The typical is 5 to 15, and you said it's they're racking up.
600 to 800.
Wow, so almost a megawatt per rack.
Yeah, almost a megawatt per rack, which I think some supercomputers do hit that that level of density per rack. Some of the like NVIDIA, you can get a full rack from NVIDIA. That's basically one giant. You can use it as one giant GPU, and I think that hits like a megawatt. But it's not a normal sized rack. I just got to see one in person at the San Diego Supercomputing Center. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's still 19 inches, but it's much deeper. It's a much deeper rack than a normal rack.
Wow.
So it doesn't fit into a normal space. But yeah, interesting stuff. I feel like that's something security folks should be aware of. I can't imagine data centers of this size. Like if they got ransomware, that'd be bad. I would not want to be defending this stuff because there's a lot of money tied up in these data centers in this level of compute.
Yeah. Curious of pricing.
All
They have some
right.
pricing on their website too.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, on demand, $379 per hour. Per GPU hour, sorry, per GPU hour. From 16 to 1500 NVIDIA HGX B200 GPUs.
1,500. Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you want to imagine for fine-tuning models to even probably building your own models from scratch without having your own infrastructure. Maybe people are using that for.
Fascinating.
All right, moving on. The next one here, story number 3, I definitely wanted to call out because I've been hearing more and more stories about cyber insurance policies not paying out. So this is from Daniel Kennedy, who used to be one of my colleagues when I was at 451 Research. He still works for 451, and for years now, for over a decade now, he puts together these huge, elaborate surveys to understand what's happening with security buying, right? Understanding what matters to security teams, what they're spending money on, what they're spending time on, or not spending money on in time, and seeing how that trends over time. And he's got some stuff on MFA here. What are the main barriers to deploying multi-factor authentication? And he calls out this case where the city of Hamilton in Ontario discovered they would not be getting a payout from their cyber insurance because they're missing MFA, and it was contingent on them having MFA deployed across everything.
That is wild. But I mean, are we surprised? Like,
Nope.
Yeah. The business of insurance is to not pay you.
if we're seeing one case of this, I imagine there's 100 more, right? That are like this. But yeah, basically, policy says coverage doesn't apply to losses caused by the absence of MFA.
Yeah. I wonder if you can argue like why one didn't have MFA, but yeah, I mean.
So he's got the list. So what are the main barriers? Usability, user experience issues. So I've heard stories where one department in the business just absolutely refuses, like it's too much friction. It slows them down. They can't get their jobs done. So it might not be that they didn't roll out MFA like they did everywhere they could, but this, because of politics, internal politics, this one department refused to. Or maybe many departments. Setup costs is number 2. So basically, almost a third of people said both user experience issues and setup costs. That's almost 30% for both of them on this survey. Lack of support for legacy applications is another big one at 25%.
Well, that can be made an exception, right? So that's like, I don't think an insurance company will deny you if it can't even be done. As long as it's not a critical system, or like maybe you try to do a workaround. Right. But this is, I mean, honestly, it sucks, but this is good fodder for any CISO to be like, hey, we need MFA and here's why. I mean, like if your cybersecurity insurance company doesn't pay, who's also going to, do you have like an umbrella policy? I'm like, who's going to pay after that? It's going to come from your investors, and it's gonna suck. So
And then the other cyber insurance case that's big in the news was Jaguar Land Rover, which we don't have in here, but reportedly they were in the midst of negotiating cyber insurance when they got hit. So they're not going to get any support from cyber insurance, but they are going to get support from the UK government. So the UK government has pledged a couple $2 billion to basically be able to pay people's salaries until they can get factories back up and running.
yeah. So
Yeah, because
cybersecurity insurance
suppliers,
is,
dealers, suppliers, like there's a whole supply chain that's going to go out of business, or at least have to lay off a whole bunch of people if Jaguar Land Rover doesn't get back up and
I know,
running.
right? Yeah. Yeah. The premiums have went up like tremendously. On just side note, like the whole cybersecurity
Oh
insurance
yeah,
thing is went bananas in the past like 3 to 5 years. Premiums used to be like accessible and affordable. Now, I mean, you can still find decent premiums, but whew, they go up. The questions have been getting more rigorous, right? Before they used to only
oh yeah.
send you like 10 questions. Now they'll send you
Mhm.
like a lot more. So it's I guess it's like a sign of the industry maturing, right? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the insurance companies are kind of learning from some of these payouts,
Mm.
and adjusting those questionnaires as a result. A few more I want to run through. I'm just going to mention a few really quick because I want more time to talk about some of these others. So, story number 4, just one of these LinkedIn posts that's really interesting. Alex Hurtado uh, breaks down SOC architecture, and I think both like a breakdown of how the data pipeline is put together for security operations, and the actual playbooks, the actual workflows, like how SOC folks, security operations folks do their job. Like both those things, whiteboarding those out, creating diagrams of how those work. Alex Hurtado has a pretty good diagram in this post that can get you started there. Is a really good exercise to figure out, okay, like where does this suck? Where are we too slow? Where are we bottlenecked? And where could AI actually do something useful here, with automation or automating one of these tasks in the process. So I think it's a good exercise for people to go through rather than just kind of shotgunning AI everywhere.
Yeah, I love this. I love this. And even for the job seekers where like SOC analyst is like your entry level thing, this is a
Mhm.
great way to understand the
Yeah.
nebulous thing, thing that is the SOC or cybersecurity in general.
Yeah, you hear people talk about it, but it's really cool seeing it all kind of laid out. Like here's
Yeah.
all the because it's not even just one version. Like there's like here's one way you could do it. Here's another way you could do it. This diagram that they put together here helps you understand some of those decisions.
Yeah. This is a good one.
Um, the next one here, story number 5. These are insights on how tech companies measure the impact of AI on software development. So basically, it's a list of metrics that GitHub tracks, Google tracks, Dropbox, Atlassian, Monzo. I'm not familiar with Microsoft, A, Adian. I'm not familiar with Booking.com, Grammarly, Toast, Glassdoor, whole bunch of others here. And basically bullet points for each one. Like here's the metrics these companies are tracking to see if AI is helping.
Hmm.
And it's fascinating. Because like some of these bullet points are the same across all of them. Like I would love to do some analysis of like what's really common here versus what is unique for different companies.
This is really cool.
But yeah, worth you could spend a good 30 minutes just looking at these. Uh, what is it? That's 9, and then another 9, so 18 companies that they looked at here.
Hmm.
Yeah, so a lot looking at DAU, WAU of AI tools, so daily use. Um, which I'm not sure that's telling you how valuable it is. I don't know. I guess if people aren't using it, it's not valuable to them, right?
Right.
Number of bugs, percent of code coverage, PR throughput is a really common one. PR cycle time from created to merged, developer satisfaction. So I imagine some of these companies are surveying their developers internally.
Mm-hmm.
Time saved per engineer per week. Good luck calculating that. I don't know
I was
how
about to
Dropbox
say
is doing that.
That's so nebulous.
Yeah, very nebulous. Bad developer days. Microsoft tracks bad developer days.
I guess, I wonder if you could, if you could track like how much compute time you spent on a particular PR, and then if there was any downstream bugs or how long it took to review that PR, right? And then after it got merged, did it cause any bugs after merge? That might be interesting. Like that because some interesting metrics. I wonder if they have.
It sounds like some of them are pretty close to what you're describing there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, maybe not all that together, but individually, like a lot of the things you just mentioned, I saw on these lists.
Yeah, because really downstream is where you're going to understand more.
So moving on, we've got a couple minutes left, a lot to cover here. First, malicious MCP in the wild. I couldn't remember if we already covered this, but basically somebody was managing a copy of an MCP server. Yeah, didn't we cover this on a previous podcast? Am I crazy?
I don't think so. I don't think in depth.
Okay. Anyway, so there's a company called Postmark, or a subsidiary of a company called Postmark, and they have a beta MCP server that you can grab. It's only on GitHub though. So somebody took that code off of GitHub, created their own repo on npm, npmjs.com, and they started managing it. And they managed it faithfully for 15 versions. And then on version 16, they threw a BCC to their email into this MCP server. And all this MCP server does is deliver email, basically. It's designed for like marketing companies to fire out marketing emails, newsletters, that kind of thing. So, yeah, just doing a BCP. I mean, given what the MCP server is for, I don't think it's probably unlikely they're getting a lot of personal email. It's probably just marketing crap. So they like, congrats, you got a bunch of spam. But some percentage of it is probably sensitive stuff. Like there's a lot of sensitive stuff in people's emails.
Yeah.
So
password resets,
Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
This is insane. I mean, I don't know what's more wild is that the person used a real name, real profile.
Yeah.
Like, it's not.
I don't know if they've tried to explain it since, like, oh, I was just trying to debug it and forgot to take it back out, or didn't mean for that to go. I don't know, but the impact is real.
Yeah.
I'm sure they start getting a lot of email really quick.
Yeah.
The next one is just kind of a crazy, goofy one. Could almost be a squirrel story. But there's some research on a side channel attack where just taking the data from an optical mouse, because of how an optical mouse works, it captures audio, and they created some filters for that audio. All they have to be able to do is to get the USB data off the mouse. So if you had, something in line with the mouse, or if you had some kind of agent on the system with like libUSB installed, like Wireshark does ship with a USB sniffer. So you could use that open source libUSB. You could potentially capture this data and pull conversations off it.
All righty.
Probably never going to see a real attack use that, but it is really interesting and fascinating.
Yeah.
The next one here, this is wild. So South Korea created a product called G Drive. G standing for government, not related to Google or Google's G Drive in any way. Just total coincidence that it has the same name. The G is for government, and encouraged all federal officials to store all their files on this thing. There was a fire. A lot of the storage for G Drive got destroyed. So we're talking like a petabyte of stuff is now missing. And government officials like across the Korean government have no access to the files because there were no backups. They said it was too big to back up. So that was the only copy of it. So it looks like they're going to be able to restore like maybe 10% of it. But nearly a petabyte of government data is going to be lost.
Why is it too big to back up? I mean, like Amazon, S3.
I'm sure a NeoCloud could, or a hyperscaler. Like I've seen, like you can fit a petabyte into a truck, right? Like AWS will roll you a truck, an 18-wheeler, that can store their Snowball, right? Their big Snowball.
Yeah, they have a truck. They have a case.
Is a petabyte.
Yeah. Is it a petabyte? The truck? I thought it was more. Okay.
Yeah. Or it was when they originally unveiled it in 2015. It's probably more than a petabyte.
Probably more now. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. As the density's increased. So
all you need is the first backup. All you need is the first backup, and then just do incrementals after that. Right? I mean, like over the network. I mean, come on.
And you got to check out, there's a picture that goes with this story. I don't know if you opened the link.
I'm seeing it.
But there's this picture.
Oh, is that what that is?
Of these Korean officials standing in front of what looks like just a pool of water with burned servers in it, with like
oh my
rack
God.
mount Dell looking like 3U rack mount servers, just sitting rusting in a pool.
We should start sharing our screen during these news sessions and just like, it's YouTube. So like they're so sad. Like, look at them. Like
Yeah, I mean, a note for Tyson, our producer here. If there's any way you can get this image, I know we usually don't do a whole lot of editing to this, but it is worth throwing this image in there. And I'll drop it into our Slack. But I speechless when I saw this. I just can't believe that something so important, they were encouraged not to save on their local systems, to only save to G Drive, right? And then didn't have a backup. Oh my God. So now we have to go to squirrel stories. We're just about out of time.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
I think we covered just about everything. There's an excellent post from Ali Mellon that we don't really have time to talk about, but your top questions on generative AI, AI agents, agentic systems for security tools. Excellent glossary primer for just understanding the lingo, the basics, what it means from Ali Mellon over there. So make sure you check that out. In our squirrel stories, the first one was a case of a large chunk of Texas, including Dallas, losing internet access because of a stray bullet. I don't know if if there's a shooting range near the fiber, but a bullet struck the fiber, took down the internet. It's the most Texas thing ever.
Amazing.
The next one here is a hospital was fined. I believe this was in Thailand. After patient files were used as snack bags. Like if you've ever been to like a street vendor, it uses like a bit of newspaper to wrap up like deep fried snacks or something like that. There's a picture, another great photo here. I should be sharing my screen where it's just patient files. It just being used to wrap up these deep fried bread snacks.
Oh my God. Wow.
Crispy crepes, known locally as Kanam Tokyo. They look tasty, but I would prefer they're not served in someone's medical history.
Make you lose
and
your
then
appetite.
Finally, last but not least, Japanese tech giant deploys laser drones to protect chickens.
Yes. Protect the chickens.
So avian flu is spread from bird species to bird species, and like they've had to almost just burn down poultry farms when avian flu like tears through chicken population. So they basically got drones flying around shooting lasers at crows and whatever other birds could potentially be carrying the avian flu, keeping them away from the valuable chickens,
Yeah.
the livestock.
Okay. Can they do that for groundhogs and coyotes and foxes and oh my gosh.
And door-to-door salespeople.
Oh, I'm not condoning that behavior. I mean, that's the reason. Number reason
it's not a lethal laser. It's just it's like a insect bite or something like that.
Shoo,
It's just
shoo,
annoying.
get away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, chickens. That's why I haven't started chickens. I've taken care of chickens before, and those the animals, they just go underneath the fence and just eat your chickens. Nothing. Let's be cool.
Yeah, coyotes and stuff.
Consumer grade.
I really want to see. Oh, there is a video.
Is there?
There is. Oh, it's got that just kind of like default generic music that every company uses in their product video.
Oh, and it has night. I see night vision. I knew. Yeah, it's got night vision of like, oh, there's like a boar or something coming in to eat.
All right.
That's crazy.
Get to the part where you're zapping birds. Okay, it could have been a lot more fun.
Yeah.
that video could have been, well, yeah. I would love to see an American version of that video.
I wonder how long it'll be until consumer grade drones with lasers come out.
I mean, you can just get a consumer. I'm sure somebody could hack that together tomorrow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, lasers are regulated, especially like really, really strong ones, like green lasers. So yeah, I don't know. It's a good question.
In fact, you don't even need lasers. You just need like sound, like just high pitched sound to like make a animal get away.
Mm-hmm.
So in fact, you could just put it on. Okay, if somebody could please invent this, put it on like a tree, and like it'd be a directional sound thing. So it would detect the animal and then project sound with the right amplification to reach the animal in that distance and make
Keep
it go
away
away
from your garden.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Possums,
yeah,
man.
like a drone version of a scarecrow, right? Like a dynamic scarecrow.
Yeah. I'm thinking like RoboCop, but just like, more innocent and less lethal.
Oh my God. I'm going to have nightmares tonight.
Sorry.
All right. I can see the horror movies already.
Yeah.
where the drone goes crazy, has a thirst for blood, starts going after humans.
Yeah.
All right. Eamon, thank you so much for joining me today. This was delightful going through the news with you. Lot of fun. A lot of good stuff here.
Good articles today. All of them are like on point. I'm gonna send this to all of my friends today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You don't like, I think it started with 30. So there were a lot of deletions.
Okay. Less is more.
Anytime we go a week without an episode, it just piles up because I just keep adding them.
Yeah. I hear you. Cool. Welcome back.
Thank you. Big thanks to everyone watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Next week, we'll be talking to David Brockler, I think that's how you say that, about AI vulnerabilities and AI red teaming. More AI next week. See you then.